Hi, I'm Rachel Scoltock. I'm an angel medium. I'm originally from the UK, Jersey, in the Channel Islands, and I've been living in Australia for, over 25 years now. I came out as a backpacker and found this place to be my spiritual home. And I'm now an angel medium, and I've been an angel medium for over 20 years. I work with people, healing people with the help of the angels. I channel angel messages and their healing energy. And I also run events and teach people how to communicate with the angels. But I didn't start off like this. I didn't know anything about angels. In fact, just over 22 years ago, when all of this first began for me. And so over the recent few days and weeks, I've been getting an overwhelming urge to just share some of my stories about how the angels have come to me, because the message that I'm getting is that my stories can help other people who maybe have had similar experiences or need to hear what I've learned and what the angels have done for me and shown me. And so this is what this video and some other videos are going to be about. I'm not promoting any of my business. I'm not talking about my books and things. I'm just really telling my story. So they have told me to begin with telling you the story of how they came to me one night when I was really, really sad and scared. And this was probably about 2014, 2015. So about halfway through my journey, because I started with the angels in around 2003. But this was completely unexpected. So I would call this an angel intervention, a massive angel intervention that created a change in my life and a change in my thoughts about myself and the angels themselves, in fact. So at that time, I was working in my business. I worked from home, as I do now, and I was living in this small town on the east coast of Australia. And I'd been seeing this guy for about 2 or 3 months. We'd met just locally. And at first, I thought he was really nice. He had his own business. He seemed really intelligent, really smart, quite sensitive. And but over time, he began to get jealous and angry and checking up on me all the time and not liking it if I questioned him about anything, if he was late. And it was sort of turning into a more suffocating relationship where I didn't feel safe and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. Sometimes he'd be really loving and sometimes he'd be really awful. And he worked shifts doing what he was doing, and I was just working my normal hours. And so sometimes he would come over to my place after his shift ended quite late at night and ask if he could stay, or I would cook him dinner and just a normal relationship, really, getting to know each other. And so that particular night he turned up and he wasn't in a good mood and he wouldn't speak about anything, and I hadn't been able to get hold of him in the day. And he just became extremely angry towards me when I questioned him about something. And after becoming really angry, he began to scare me a little bit. I thought, this is going to turn physical if I'm not careful, and it was getting nasty. So I asked him to leave. And finally, and thankfully, he left. He went through the front door, and I was living in like a little one-story house. It was on a slope, quite a steep driveway, and then kind of a main road at the bottom of the driveway to where he was parked, and he just screamed off in his car. And I went to bed and I turned all the lights off in the house because I thought, I had a feeling he was going to come back, and I was scared. And I was also really emotional and, scared, sad. He'd said a lot of awful things, and I was crying really heavily in this pitch black house, curtains drawn, all the lights off, just in case he came back and thought he could knock on the door, and sobbing my heart out, just really, really crying. And I was sad for so many reasons, because I was in my 40s then, and I was thinking how that was probably going to be my last relationship, and why couldn't I meet someone nice, and all of this, that there'd been so many hopes. So I was crying and crying and crying, and I had my eyes tightly closed. I was laid on my back in my bed when all of a sudden a bright light went on in the room. And I knew it wasn't just normal electric light from the ceiling, right? It was like so bright. It was like looking at full beam headlights, all those stadium lights. And so I opened my eyes were closed then, and I could still see how light it was. I opened my eyes, and what I could see was the ceiling had completely disappeared, and there was this radiant spiritual light, so bright, coming down from the ceiling. And when I looked up, the ceiling had hundreds of angels. And they were sort of in a V shape, like lined up next to each other, going off into infinity above my head. And there was just this light and these angels, and they were radiating white light. Their skin wasn't white. I couldn't really see their skin. I couldn't see their features. It was just this intense light, but it was a peaceful light. It wasn't like, when you look at like I'm looking at my ring light right now, it didn't hurt my eyes, but it was just radiating out from these angels. And all I could hear was this rustling. It was like sort of a noise. And I could see that their wings, they had huge wings behind them, arched up. And they kind of hit the floor and kind of curled up, the feathers. So it was the sound that I was hearing was their wings rustling. And the angels themselves were standing really, really close together. And they all looked the same, although I knew that they weren't the same. They felt like individual beings, but I couldn't see their features, but I could see this light glowing, and their skin looked like porcelain, like so smooth and soft. They were wearing white gowns, their wings were white feathered, and there was just this light and no ceiling and this sound. And what began to happen to me is that I just started to really, really calm down. I was quite hysterical. I think I was doing that kind of gulping, crying. And I started to be able to breathe more steadily. I felt just nothing but immense peace and awe. And the whole time that I was looking at them up at the ceiling, I kept thinking they were going to disappear at any moment. I have clairvoyant vision, but when you stare directly at something, like if you see an aura or you see an angel, or usually it's like the glimpse, and you stare directly at it, and it fades because your physical eyes, you sort of the staring makes it go away because you're really seeing something etheric. But every time I blinked, every time I squeezed my eyes, every time I looked, they just were still there. And it felt like they were there for hours. That's how it felt until I fell asleep and I woke up in the morning and obviously they were gone. But all I was left with was this feeling of peace and a feeling, and I heard the words, or I felt, or the words were in my head: everything is going to be all right. Everything is going to be okay. And that's obviously what allowed me that peace and their presence and the everything is going to be okay took away my fear, because I was scared. I did think he was going to come back and either start another argument or try and get in the house. And, I thought I'd been really lucky to get him out of the house that night. So the next day, when I opened my phone up, because I had purposefully turned my phone off, knowing because he was a bit of a texter, I knew that there was going to be a million texts there, and there was lots and lots of texts of, insulting texts, begging texts, come back to me texts, they were like all over the place. But there was one particular text that really stood out to me in this kind of roller coaster of millions of texts, was that he at some point had said, after I left you, I suddenly had this feeling of immense peace and the feeling that everything was going to be all right. And then it kind of, he went back into regressing into the anger again. But that really took me aback, because I realized that the moment that the angels had appeared to me, and I had never, I'm an angel medium, I do readings, I'm clairvoyant, I have seen angels before, I've had all sorts of experiences with angels, but nothing as intense as that, as full on and 3D and completely mind body, everything was taken over as that. I felt like almost I'd been transported to the other side. That's how I felt. I didn't feel like I was in my body. I realized that the same moment that they appeared to me and they were giving me peace and they were telling me that everything was going to be all right, they must have also been somehow radiating that energy and that message to him, even though he was, probably not able to perceive it in the same way that I was. And he was angry, and probably, he wasn't really interested in spiritual stuff when I met him. He still managed to feel a feeling of peace. And what I got from that is that when something ends, a toxic relationship, or a job that you're done with, or you move away from something that doesn't serve you anymore for whatever reason. It could just be that you've run out of good times together, like it's time to move on. That when you let go and move and stop it, it's not only for your highest good, it's for the highest good of the other person or people involved. And so, whether sometimes it holds us back. We think, oh, I can't leave this relationship because this person's going to be so upset, or and on an ego level, maybe they are. But when you actually make that move and you say, okay, well, I know this isn't for my highest good because I'm unhappy, it's causing me pain, it's causing me stress, it's draining me. I've tried everything I can, it's still not working. That it's actually okay. You don't need to hold on to guilt, because that's, if it's not making you happy, it can't on any level be making the other person happy, except for from the ego of, like, they think that it's going to make them happy, or they think that having you there is making them more secure, but it's actually not. And if there's abuse involved, then you're actually giving them a chance to heal. Whether they do or they don't isn't down to you, but it's an opportunity for them to reflect and go, okay, why did that person leave me? Or why, and start to maybe consider therapy or make a change or think about what they've done. They may or may not do that. They may need much more than that to be able to wake up, but that part isn't up to you. But the fact is from the divine perspective, the angels and God, is that we're not meant to stay in anything that keeps us scared, unhappy, fighting, drained, stressed. It's not supposed to be that way. And the path of pain never leads you to peace. It only leads you to more pain. And the path of peace is the only path that leads you to peace. So in any given moment, we should be choosing peace, right? That's what I've learned over the years, and that's what I learned from that. But just the synchronicity that as he was wherever he was driving to, or wherever he was at the moment that the angels came into that room for me, something happened for him too. And that gave me the strength to not have a weak moment and go back, and to completely understand that the angels had my back, and that I didn't I could choose a life of peace if I wanted to. So that was powerful. And on reflection now, thinking about it, many years later, is I think I was probably in more danger than I thought I was. Maybe it was spiritual danger. Maybe I was, on the edge of a depression and spiraling because I was really, really down. Maybe it was physical danger. I don't know. I can't say. But I feel like there was some reason that they chose that moment, right? Because I've had lots of challenges in my life, lots of tears, but that moment was when they came in. And it was that moment that actually led me to write my second book, which is My Life with Angels, which is, I haven't written another book since. I keep meaning to, I will do, but which was all about the angels and their messages for us, how to connect with them, but also all the stories of things that happened to me and my clients. So that was a pivotal turning point for me. And when, I watched things like NDE testimonials, near-death experiences, I feel a familiarity, even though I haven't had a near-death experience in that way. I feel that when people speak about light beings being bathed in light, and even the tunnel of light, because the way that my ceiling had disappeared and there was just angels as far as I could see in this kind of lining, the passageway, if you like, that reminds me of many near-death experience testimonials that I've watched and listened to. So, angels are beings of pure love and light, and they're here to not only watch over us and protect us, but to guide us and lead us in the right direction. And they're always guiding us. But I think there are times when it's life and death before our time where they come and intervene. And I think they're here and close much more than we really think they are. And they know what goes on. And, still now I feel, a lot of emotion when I think about that moment, not just about what compassion for myself and what I was going through, right? And I learned a lot from that relationship, that I wasn't going to put up with that kind of behavior ever again, even if it meant staying single, that I would rather be on my own than have to put up with anything like that. But also, our angels are just always trying to remind us to stay in that, keep our minds clean and clear, keep our energy clear, to make choices that guide us on the path of peace instead of fear and negativity and insecurity and anger or guilt. That we're safe as long as we keep walking on that path. But they're always there with us, whether we hear them or not, whether we listen to them or not. And it's a rare thing, I think, to have quite an intervention like that. I haven't had anything quite as intense since, but I know they're there. They're always there. And when I quiet my mind, I hear them. And when I do my practices to tune into them, I can bring through their messages. But it really was a powerful experience that I'm really grateful for. So I've had a couple of other experiences, including the one that the angels first came into my life, as in first came in and made me conscious of them, so which I'll share with you at another time. But I want to thank you for watching and listening. If there is anything that you want to ask me about that experience, or you have something of your own, an experience with the angels that you want to share, I'd love to hear from you. Just, comment. And I hope that you enjoyed my testimonial. Angel blessings.